I guess not a good day for pattern work. And, yeah, why are we sitting here? You're probably wondering. Why are we sitting here where I can't see in front of me about to take off a runway? I don't know where I am. Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm so glad you asked. In fact, I want to commend you for asking. How do I put this easily? This video may just change your sim life. Why? Why, you ask? Great question. Today we're going to talk about the Airbus system when it comes to executing an ILS approach. We're going to talk about fail operational, fail passive, CAT III dual, autopilot 1 and 2, arming the approach, a CAT 1 approach versus a CAT 2 approach versus CAT 3 approach. We're going to talk about so many things. Alert height, decision height. Oh my God, you guys are so excited. I can tell. I can just tell. So let's get into this first. Let's get the heck out of this airport, wherever we are, which the answer to your question is we are here in Philadelphia in the A321 Airbus livery, because we're sort of operating as a flight check right now. Also, I've heard from you guys, okay? You guys are like, hold on, we're going to bring you a little closer here. Hold on. You just stand by 1 second here, Chief. You guys keep asking me, Joe, why are you flying from the right seat? You're supposed to be in the left seat when you're flying to Airbus. Listen, I'm a first officer. I fly in the right seat. I know this sight picture well. I'm not going to give you guys information and perform poorly from a seat that I'm not as used to. My setup has the side stick on the right here, the thrust levers on the left. All right? When I upgrade, which hopefully should be soon, within like 6 months or so, then you know what? I will fly from the left seat all you want. But for now, you're going to have to suck it up. As they say, embrace the suck. Because you guys are about to learn a lot about how to execute properly an instrument landing system approach, an ILS approach in the Airbus. So, I'll get smaller again. Let's get into it. Now we're stable. Man flex, SRS, runway, auto thrust. My rudder pedals are too sensitive. Thrust set. 100 knots. V1, rotate. Pause, rate, gear up. Runway track, pull, heading. And we're on our way out here of Low Vis, Philadelphia. There's the outer marker because we always keep that on real world. We don't keep that on real world. Are you kidding? AP2. All right. So we're airborne, guys. We're getting the heck out of here. All right. Now we're here at cruise, 5,000 feet, guys. We're going to be going in, as you can see here, the ILS 9er right. But what we need to do first is start configuring the MCDU. Now we're going to quickly zoom in here, and you're going to see if you haven't put in the destination data by this point that you need to put it in. All right, so it's going to ask, excuse me, enter destination data. Now, to do that, you're going to go to perf page. You're going to clear out the scratch pad alert. This is your descent and managed mode. We're essentially at cruise, and if we wanted to descend at a different speed and we were above 10, it would adhere to that, but that's for stars in a different video. This is the approach information. So this is the information, what's currently going on at Philly, right? So altimeter is 3030. Temperature, wind, are the two next things you want to do. So I don't know the weather currently because I have it customized. So I'm going to quickly just take a look here. Celsius, 14 degrees. And the wind looks calm. Yeah, we're going to say wind calm. So 14 degrees, resume the flight. And we're going to put the temperature at 14. We're just going to go 0 to 0, wind calm. All right, this is the approach information. Now, when you're looking at this, you're going to see all these different values. These two values are what matter most to you. Okay, baro and radio. There's a very, very clear difference between baro and radio, and we'll go into that. But to go into that, we're going to need to go into the classroom. I know, classroom. What do you mean, Joe? It means it's time to learn. Welcome to school, ladies and gentlemen. ILS purchase CAT 1, 2, 3. Meow. What's an ILS? For those of you who don't know. Instrument Landing System is what ILS stands for. It's a GBN system, ground-based navigation. Has antennas. Antenna shoots signals. Plane gets signal. Plane says, oh, okay, signal, got it. And then modifies instrumentation and course deviation indicators so that you know where you are. Two-part system of an ILS. Ready? Localizer, that's lateral. That's your left and right. Glide slope, vertical. That is your up and down. How high you are in altitude following the slope down. You can see there are two parts. The localizer right here and the glide slope right here. I know, crazy concept, guys. All right, this graphic here, pretty simple. You have a glide slope antenna. You have the localizer DME antenna right here at the end. This whole thing. And the localizer is shooting out frequencies to the plane saying, are you left or right of course? And the glide slope is saying, are you high or low? Forget about the VOR DMA. That's just hanging out and it's just doing its thing. What are we looking at here? We're actually looking at Philadelphia International Airport's ILS Niner right glide slope. This is the real world glide slope, as you can see. It is always patrolled by police 24/7, 365. That's bull. That's bull. I don't know if that's true at all. I just found it very funny that the Google Earth image has a cop literally hiding as if he's protecting the glide slope. I mean, there is an access door here. That probably makes a lot more sense, but I think it's funny that there's a cop sitting there. Okay, we're going to get in the weeds here, guys, and I know you probably don't care, but if you do care and you want to learn, courtesy of these graphics Pox Cafe, I used them a lot when I was getting my instrument rating way back when. Real world pilots, for those of you working on your instrument rating, get the Pilots Cafe cheat sheet for instrument. Fantastic. Anyway, every ILS or the localizer, if it doesn't have a glide slope, has a specific assigned frequency between 108.1 and 111.95. Localizer frequencies will only use odd decimals as they share the same range within VORs, meaning a localizer will end with 0.1, 0.3, 0.5, and so on, whatever odd numbers. The way that it works is pretty simple. Using AM, amplitude modulation, yes, the exact same thing as a car radio. It comes from the localizer and the glide slope. If the plane's receiving one signal stronger than the other, it'll cause your CDI to deflect. So you can see there's a range within 150 hertz and 90 hertz. If it starts to feel a weakening or something getting stronger left or right, it'll start modifying your deviation indicator. Same thing goes for the glide slope. As you can see, I got to move my big ass head out of the way. As you can see there, 90 and 150 hertz. 150 hertz low, 90 hertz high. Glide slopes are typically angled at 3 degrees unless terrain requires steeper descent angle. If you're going into mountainous terrain that has an ILS servicing a runway. It's the glide slope's actually within the UHF range of frequencies between 329.3 and 335 megahertz. You'll never tune a glide slope in your entire life. It's automatically paired to localizer frequency. If you want to look those up, check the government website. It'll tell you the pairings if you really care that much. Nobody does. Glide slope is subject to false information. I remember teaching all my students this. This false slope is a real thing. If you are too high, it will generate a false slope. So you need to be very careful and always make sure you're intercepting at published altitudes for glide slope intercept. That's a little bit on the technical side. I don't expect you guys to memorize that. Categories of an ILS. You got CAT 1, 2, and 3. All right. CAT 1, It's your standard approach. Basic instrumentation, standard pilot training. You have an instrument rating. It'll only take you down to about 200 AGL, half-mile visibility. That's typically the limits of a CAT I ILS. Certain ILS approaches require certain lighting systems to be installed for the runway, on the runway, for the runway. So I'm not going to get into the weeds on that with you guys. CAT II ILS. Redundant systems for a localizer and glide slope, and autopilot autoland capability, specialized training and authorization for crew. It's typically more advanced aircraft like the Airbus, like some corporate jets. 737, all those, transport level aircraft, they have autoland capabilities. So this requires specialized training and authorization for crew. The aircraft and the company operating that aircraft, if the aircraft is capable, must also have the authorization to do so from the government agency, because the aircraft has to not only be able to perform it, but the company needs to put together a training program and their standards for it. Airline pilots, we all are trained in Autoland. If our aircraft is capable of Autoland, we will need to be trained in Autoland for low visibility operations. And CAT III ILS, which is the most, there's technically 3 subcategories of CAT III, A, B, and C. We're not going to go into the weeds on it. More redundant systems, separate power sources for the ILS and glide slope, and independent flight management computers. This is critical. Independent flight management computers. You're like, why is this critical? We'll get into that in the next slide. Stop getting ahead of me. I know you're excited. CAT IIIB and CAT IIIC allow no visibility Autolands. It is a crazy experience. 10 out of 10, would recommend. Highly specialized training and authorization required. As an airline pilot, we get this training every 6 months. We demonstrate Autolands within the sim. I've had to do Autolands into multiple different airports. The most crazy Autoland I've had to do is into Long Island MacArthur Airport, ISP. That was neat. So editing Joe here. I took this photo when I did this approach, this Autoland into Long Island MacArthur. This was back in January of 25. I've obviously cropped it so you can't see what company I fly for, because I always disassociate my professional life from my entertainment life as a streamer. So as you can see here in this image, you can barely see the lights and the taxiway sign over there. This is to put it in perspective for you. I'll bring up another image. So if you look at this, I've sort of just went onto the Google Maps view. From where I was standing roughly by the aircraft, all the way to that one taxiway sign, that is a whopping 416 feet. So by the time we actually got to the gate, the visibility dropped even lower to the point a CAT II approach could not be executed. So we were very lucky to be able to get in before the visibility got even worse. So as you can see here, if you take a look at the ILS Runway 6 Special Authorization CAT II approach, it requires 1200 RVR for all categories of aircraft. Now, obviously in the previous image, the weather and visibility got even worse. But when we came in to execute the approach, luckily enough, we did have the 1200 required RVR to execute the approach, and we were able to land. But, judging by that image, you can imagine what it's like being in the real aircraft, having to execute an Autoland and just trusting the airplane will do what it needs to do. Approach minimums. CAT I, 200 AGL, half-mile visibility. CAT II, 100 AGL, 1200 to 1800 RVR. It's roughly a quarter mile. And then CAT III is 0 AGL, meaning 0 on the ground. 150 to 700 feet RVR. CAT III, typically, you do not need visual reference at all. You will be on the ground before you actually see the runway. Crazy. Fail operational, fail passive Autolands. This is where it gets into the weeds of the Airbus. This is what matters for you guys in this video. Fail operational state is CAT III dual. Remember, when you enable it, you'll see on top, CAT III dual. In the event of a redundant system failure, the aircraft can continue the approach and execute an Autoland and be trusted to execute said Autoland. It requires AP1 and 2 engagement, dual, redundant systems, dual channel. Typically, there's no decision height, meaning this approach can be executed and auto-landed without ever seeing the runway. Fail passive, CAT III Single. In the event of a failure, the aircraft can continue the approach with the autopilot enabled and manage a stabilized approach. However, it cannot be trusted to ensure a successful autoland. It can do the autoland, but it cannot be trusted. There's a difference. In CAT III Dual, what happens if one autopilot fails? The other autopilots there as a backup and say, I got you. But in the fail passive state, if you are CAT III Single, let's say the aircraft has an MEL, minimum equipment list, or downgraded. Again, in the sim, you probably will never find this. What's the backup to the airplane? Because it's already lost its dual capability. What's the backup? The pilot. So, however, it cannot be trusted to ensure a successful autoland. You now have a decision height, which becomes a factor as the aircraft no longer has a redundant autoland capability, as I just said, because an autopilot channel has failed. If the pilot cannot visually ensure the aircraft is over the runway and landing in the touchdown zone, a go-around must be executed. Typically, this is around 50 feet DH. So, 50 feet, you'll get minimums. If you do not see that the aircraft is over the threshold, landing properly within the touchdown zone, it is an immediate go-around. You need to be able to see. If you cannot see, you cannot be sure that you are the backup to the fail passive state. All right, guys, so we're back in the airplane here, and there's a few things of configuration we need to do here just to get us ready for the approach. Okay. So I'm slowing us down here. Excuse me. Hold on. Just need some iced tea to wet my whistle. What does this all mean, Joe? Well, we're gonna get into it, right? We need to set up this aircraft for the approach. So let's set up the aircraft for the approach. We're going to first off make sure that the RVR for this is going to be 600. We'll do RVR of 600. Press enter on that. We're going to make sure that the weather is absolutely horrific. And that'll be fine. Okay, all good and fine. Now that we have that done, we can see here this alert saying enter destination data, right? So ideally you would be on a star when you're doing this. You'd be a couple 100 miles out putting in the environmentals, but right now we'll just quickly do it. We're going to put in the QNH, the altimeter setting, temperature. There is no wind. And then baro and radio we'll get to in a second. Landing configuration, are you landing flaps 3 or flaps full? We'll do a flaps full landing because it is an autoland. What are these values? The little O doesn't mean on, it doesn't mean oh. It means green dot. What is green dot? Right there on your PFD. That's green dot. So you'll notice here, green dot is at 221. S speed is at 206, F speed is at 151, your approach is 140, and your VLS is 135, landing config full. Now, this is where this matters, baro and radio, right? So we're going to start with a CAT III Dual Autoland. Now, to do this, we need to open up Navigraph. We're going to quickly take a look here. We're going to make sure that we are using the proper chart. Do not be on this chart because you'll notice there is nothing about this. DA, decision altitude or decision height of 221. This is an autoland. We don't have a decision height for a CAT III approach. So make sure you're on the CAT II, CAT III page. Notice special aircrew and aircraft certification required, just like we discussed. It's the ILS Work 9 right, CAT II, CAT III. Cool. Then we look at the minimums here. CAT III ILS. Nothing, just RVR of 600. CAT II ILS. Radio altimeter 113, which is a DA or DH of 121. 1200 RVR. So we have all this data in here, and we have the information about the missed approach and all that fun stuff. But what do we put in? 0? No. Excuse me. We do not put in 0. We put in something even better into the radio field here. We type NO. No. Telling the plane, there are no minimums. You're doing this thing. Chicken wang. All right. No. And that's it. That's all you're going to do for now. So you have all that set up. You make sure that you have the entire plane configured properly and that it is capable of a CAT III approach. In this case, this is a CAT III dual-equipped aircraft. Typically, you would see a placard here in a real aircraft indicating what the status is of the aircraft. In this case, there isn't that in the sim, but that's quite all right. Now, you'll notice here, the approach phase is not activated. We're not in the approach phase. We need to get into the approach phase, guys. It's obviously very important. What does this button do when you activate the approach? Well, I'll actually show you guys. If I were to manage this speed right now, the plane is going to speed up to 250 knots because it knows it's below 10,000 feet, right? When you activate the approach phase, if you don't have speed selected on the FCU, it's going to immediately slow to green dot, which in this case is 221 knots. So we're just going to roll that out on 360 because it looks like we're a little far out. So now we're doing 250 knots, as you can see. And if I activate this approach phase, watch what occurred. The plane, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to activate the approach? Yes, I am. Watch what happens. The plane puts in the V approach speed, but immediately it's going to slow to green dot. That's its first step. So it's going to slow down to green dot. It's now in that managed mode where it knows to slow here. It's not going to go slower than that because it knows that this is the VFE next, the flap speed, indicating you can put flaps. If I start putting flaps down, it's going to keep slowing down to S speed, F speed, all that fun stuff. Now, when executing an ILS approach, you obviously need to have your LS buttons on because otherwise you're not going to get the information. Remember we talked about the identifier, IPHL. You can see it right here. If we look at the approach plate, it should be telling us IPHL is the identifier, 109.3. So we do have a good ident on that. Now, we are still about 15 miles out from Associ. I'm going to pull speed, select it, and I'm going to start slowing this plane down. We are below VFE next, flaps 1. And then we will slow this bird down to 180. And we'll also start a descent to 3,000 feet. Okay, so as we're on our way down here, we are essentially setting up for the approach. What am I doing, bro? Back to the left, Airbus, because I don't know how to fly a plane, apparently. I'm not focusing on vectoring myself. I'm focusing on teaching. Now, I could just nav to Associ and make my life easy, but that's too easy. Now, a main thing that we do a lot to what's called clean up the box here is we'll press direct. You can see there's no disco or some centerline awareness. We can actually extend the line off Associ. I'll show you guys how to do that. It's a cool little trick that you learn. We go to Associ, radial in 267. That's the opposite radial of the course, and insert. It's going to alert you no nav intercept because it automatically goes into nav blue mode. And we're just going to pull. And now we have a centerline guidance, which is very nice. The important thing about this is to essentially know how to get the plane to start doing its thing, right? So what we'll do is to enable this CAT III dual mentality, so we are dual redundancy, we're going to press approach AP1. CAT III dual, autopilot 1-2. Now, notice how it says no DH, no decision height. We'll see glide slope is blue, loc is blue, meaning that the approach is armed. It's ready to capture whenever. I've taken my sweet time with this approach, slowing to 180. You would never slow to 180 this far out unless ATC told you to. Because I'm going to take 17 business days to get to the runway now. Speed out star. So notice how this is CAT III dual. What happens, guys, if I cause a little bit of a failure here, right? We'll go into fault scenarios, add a new fault. We're going to go to auto flight, and we're going to look for autopilot 1 now, and watch what happens. You hear a triple click, dick, dick, dick. We are now CAT III Single. We have now gone into a mode reversion. We have been degraded. So we would not necessarily be able to continue at this point because we are above what would be the decision height. We are well above it. We'd have to essentially re-prep everything. So we're going to reset that fault here. And we're reset. And now I got to quickly just click that back on. And now we are CAT III dual again. Glide slope star. Missed approach altitude. 3,000 set. We're on our way down. We're going to stay at 180. Because I know real world executing this approach. Keeley is our glide slope intercept point. We were able to pick it up out here because it feeds down to Keeley, but we know our real glide slope intercept is going to be right here as our final approach fix. So we're coming down on this. I'm going to keep 180 until that point because I know I can slow down this this airplane. You'll notice there's a button here that says Autoland. If this blinks red, it means that something in the Autoland system has failed and you must go around. So there's that light for a reason, in case you have an Autoland failure. Now, this plane, when it lands, it's going to land itself and it's going to maintain the centerline control. The only way to get off the centerline is to disconnect the autopilot. So it's coming in. We're pretty much over Keeley, so we will we'll start getting this plane configured. We're going to manage the speed so it can start slowing to the final approach speed. We'll go flaps 3 and we'll go gear down. We'll increase the drag rate. We'll make sure that the ground spoilers are armed. And we will go flaps full. And the plane will continue in. Guys, I am doing absolutely nothing at this point. And this plane is just going to auto-land itself. This cabin thing's not a real world thing. Super annoying. I wish I could turn off that feature, but I can't. And we're just coming in, guys. We're doing absolutely nothing. We're chilling out. We're watching the systems. We're CAT III dual right now, guys. Again, if at or above the alert height, if you do not have CAT III dual, you must go around. Because you do not have the dual redundancy. Now, if it happens after that point, then you're just going to make sure that the plane continues on its original plan and you make sure that it's going to land within the actual runway area. So we're gonna keep going. What we should see here on the FMAs is you're going to eventually see a bunch of different things. You're going to hear call outs that are occurring, but you're going to see this go into flare and then roll out. If you don't get those, that means that you can't auto land. You got to go around. Roll out, you would just disconnect the autopilot and steer manually, but we're doing nothing, guys. We're chilling. We're hanging out. We're CAT III dual. No decision height.
500.
At 100 feet RA, it'll be alert. It'll be alert height. So there's land. That's good. We got a land FMA, so we're good. We're good to keep going here.
300.
Every Airbus is configured differently with the RA callouts. I have them all on right now, just as an example. So at 100 feet, I'm going to say alert height. Alert height.
50. 40.
There's flare.
20. 10. Retard. Stop. Retard.
There you go. And it's the autopilot is still engaged, guys. The only thing you do is you manage the thrust reversers. Now, what I didn't do is have the auto brakes on for this. Typically, you would have the auto brakes on because you can't see, but I can twist as much as I want on my rotor pedals. Nothing will happen until I disconnect the autopilot. Now I have control of the aircraft again. And I can press the brakes and we'll stop on the runway. That is what an Autoland looks like in very low visibility conditions. Now what we're going to do, guys, is show what happens when you have a auto flight degrade. We're coming in pretty hot right now, just because I wanted to speed it up. But I wanted you guys to see what occurs when you have the degrade happen at a different point. So again, I will be triggering this failure at a specific point because I have a different window that controls the TOLUS over the network. So we're coming in, everything's good and fine, 840 feet. Cabin, it wants me to check it. I really wish I could disable that because that is not a real thing. At least not in the airplanes I fly. All right, there's 100. And, oh, we just went to CAT III Single Autopilot 1, but we still have flare, thrust idle, and it still landed. So the plane still landed perfectly fine, guys. Because what you need to remember about this failure is that if you're below 100 feet at that point, you're in a critical phase of flight where if you're able to see the runway and you know that you're in the flare FMA at this point and you have a degrade, you know that the chances of having a dual degrade happen are slim to none. So you still had the flare FMA. If you didn't get the flare FMA, then you would have gone around. So that's essentially what occurred in that scenario, where you have a CAT III single degrade. Now, in the case of a CAT III approach, CAT III single aircraft, let's say that we went into a CAT III single configuration. Real quick here. We're going to set our minimums, if we are in that, to a radio of 50. Wrong button. Radio of 50, right, guys? And then I will quickly degrade this airplane to a CAT III single scenario. Select now, apply. We've now degraded to CAT III single Autopilot 2 only because Autopilot 1 has failed on us. That's okay. We're glide slope, the missed approach altitude still 3,000 it's set. We're coming down. We'll go gear down really quick here. And even though we're CAT III single, guys, the only difference is now we are making a decision at the radio altitude of 50 feet. Are we landing or are we going around? Do we have the runway in sight? That is the key thing to know. Are we going to land in the touchdown zone at 50 feet? If not, we're going the heck around. So we're coming in, CAT III single. Life is good. Lowest authorized RVR is 600 feet or as published, whichever is greater in this case. At least that's the way I'm trained. So we know the RVR right now is 600 feet. We're still coming in. We're enjoying life. All right. Still get this plane configured. We're still coming in. How far out are we? We're over Keeley now. We'll manage the speed. Oh, hello. Manage that speed, and we're just going to keep on coming. We're trucking on down, guys. Just keep on trucking. CAT III single. What's the only difference, guys? The radio now is 50 feet. You have to make a decision. CAT III single, you're making a decision. CAT II, you're making a decision. CAT III dual. No DH. You don't make decisions unless an FMA is directing you to. Failure of an FMA, if you're not seeing land, if you're not seeing flare, you're going around. But in this case, we're just chilling. We're chilling like villains. We're hanging out. I know this video is super long, guys, but it's important to understand how this system works. Land FMA is good. We're still continuing because we need to see the runway.
300.
Not there just yet, right, guys? There's the approach lights. Okay. All right. All right. Good. We're getting close. And there's the runway. I see it. We're going to be landing.
100. 50. Minimum. 40. 30. 20. 10. Retard.
And there we go. And at this point, guys, we're in the rollout phase. Stow those reversers. Disconnect the autopilot. Press the brakes. And we'll get off the runway. Let's talk about the CAT II approach. Pretty much the same, except you have some sort of instrumentation failure, right? So let's simulate said failure for some reason. As we are now degraded to CAT II. This now indicates CAT II. We are now a CAT II aircraft because one of our radio altimeter has failed. But that's fine. We'll pause that. We would obviously know about this ahead of time, right? Ideally, if we were dispatched with an aircraft with only one radio altimeter, we're now in a CAT II status. So with the CAT II approach, we're going to need to put in the CAT II minimums. So we know that that is RA of 113. Remember, CAT II can still autoland, but you need visual reference to continue. So what we'll do is we'll just quickly throw that in. Again, all of this would already be done way ahead of time. We see nav RA1 fault, which is fine. Doesn't matter. And I think it was 114 of a radio. Double check that really quick. 113, I'm sorry. Every foot counts. All right, 113 of a radio. And we'll manage the speed here. We'll get the plane slowing down. We're CAT II now. CAT II. Kitty CAT II. All right, meow meow. So we're coming in. CAT II. And again, under a CAT II condition, you typically are going to have a different RVR requirement of 1200 RVR. So we'll increase the weather really quick to 1200 RVR just to make this legal. Done. Apply. Now we have 1200 RVR. Much better. Coming in, everything's good and fine. Speed's managed. We're slowing down. Get the next notch flaps in. We have radio 113 now. So we still have an nav RA1 fault. That's fine. Who cares? You can see the inoperative systems. CAT III is now inoperative. RA1 is now inoperative. All that fun stuff. Who cares, right? Still coming in, looking good. Gear down. Ground spoilers, we'll arm them. Make sure that's all good and fine. But guys, nothing changes. Okay? Let's wrap our heads around this. We are degraded now with only one radio altimeter, but that's okay. We're still slowing down. Everything's looking good. We got all the time in the world, guys. Go to flaps 3, hang out, have some coffee. But now we are CAT II. We're kitty CAT II. Only 2 kitties. Only 2 kitty cats on board now. So we're CAT II. We're hanging out. We're either going to be landing or going around. We're still going to get the flare and we're still going to get the rollout FMAs. It's still going to execute as an autoland, guys. Just remember that. The only difference about this approach when you are CAT II is that you need to make a decision, right? You need to be able to say, okay, hey, I see the runway. We're landing. We're doing it.
500.
So we're going to just keep coming on down. If we were a CAT III approach single, it's 50, right?
400.
So there's the land FMA. We're still hanging out here.
300.
Now remember, the radio is now based on the radio altimeter. It's not based on the barometric on the altimeter that's reading out. It's based on the little green thing. 100 above, yeah, that checks. And it'll say minimums, and I see the approach lights and the runway. We're landing.
Minimum.
We're landing.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. Retard. 5.
And the Autoland executes. Reversers out. I didn't turn on the auto brakes. Now I did. You wouldn't do that in the real airplane. Autopilot's still on. Plane will not let me go anywhere until I do the disco. That's it. That's CAT II approach, guys. All right, and last but not least, guys, we will do the classic CAT I approach, where we don't have a better ability for one reason or another. So we'll increase the visibility to a ½ mile of visibility, or whatever the approach plate actually requires here, which is 1800 RVR, ½ mile visibility. So we'll do ½ mile visibility, and we'll set the bases at 242 feet. Apply changes. So we'll come in. Now, keep in mind, guys, we are now executing a CAT I approach using CAT I minimums, but we are CAT III dual capable. You can be CAT III dual capable without the requirement of having to execute an Autoland, right? It happens all the time. If the aircraft has it, it's going to go into the most obvious scenario and the redundancy situation. So the only thing we need to change here, as you guys know, is to now change the BARA one more time to 221. And now those are properly set for this approach. Beautiful. Coming in. Autopilot disconnected. We're now CAT I. Flaps 3. We're just flying the flight director at this point, guys. Remember, this is a fly-by-wire aircraft. Small little corrections just to maintain it. It's going to auto-trim it. And we'll go flaps full landing checklist. Did landing checklist, and landing checklist is complete. Landing gear down would be important. We're just being nice and gentle here. Corrections. A little bit below path here. The flight director is telling us to pull up a little bit. Doing that.
1000.
Get back on the slope here. And again, the conditions now are favorable for a CAT I approach. Typically in the airlines, if the visibility or ceilings are below CAT I minimums, you are required to do an Autoland. So we're coming in, everything's looking fine. Hanging out, guys. We're hand flying the airplane. The autopilots are off, the flight directors are on. We're living life to the best we can.
500.
We're subject to a minimums of 221. So we've got about 300 feet or so to go. See, we're slightly above. It's a land FMA, a land, continuing for now. There's the approach lights, we'll continue.
100 above.
Looking good. I see the runway. The runway's in sight. We're landing. A little bit left to center line.
50, 40, 30, 20, retard, 10, 5.
Ground spoilers, reverse, green, decel. And that's CAT I approach, guys. So that's hand flown. Again, you can be in a CAT III dual config shooting a CAT I approach and disconnect the autopilot. In this case, guys, I chose to hand fly it under CAT I, fly the airplane. So I hope that was helpful to you all. I know it was a very long video, but that's the difference between a CAT I approach, CAT II approach, CAT III dual, CAT III single approach. If you like the video, be sure to press like, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys all on the next video.